My conversation today with Claire Judd, a maternal mental health therapist, explores the societal expectations placed on mothers to be nurturing and calm, highlighting the guilt and struggle women face when they feel anger or other normal human emotions that contradict these expectations. We discuss the impact of the good girl mentality on women's emotional health and the consequences of suppressing feelings such as internal conflict and explosive outbursts. Rage and other emotions are often stigmatised in women. However, such feelings are really telling us that something needs to change, and there is no shame in seeking support with that. In fact, there's so much hope in saying that out loud, and there's so much strength in saying that out loud as well. It's okay not to love every part of motherhood. Enjoy this encouraging episode. Hi Claire, thank you for being on the podcast. Can you tell our listeners where you're based and the ages of your children and how you personally came into mothering?
Yeah, it's really good to be here having this conversation. I'm really excited about it. So I'm Claire. I'm a psychotherapist for mums experiencing anger and rage. I'm based in North Yorkshire in England. I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, both girls. And, that question, like how I came into mothering, feels like such a big one because actually I don't think I ever really wanted to be a mum. It kind of more felt like it was kind of the thing that you did. And I kind of got to that point and I got the husband and the house and it was like, well, what's next? Well, I guess a baby is. And then we had a couple of miscarriages. And it was only when I experienced those that I thought, that option is potentially going to be taken away from me. And it kind of made me realise that I wanted to be a mum. And so I had to have some fertility treatment, some steroid treatment to try and prevent the miscarriages. And then I got my gorgeous now 9-year-old daughter. So yeah, it feels like it's not like I've never been one who always wanted to be a mum. Like that was never really a big part of me. But actually looking back, and maybe it's something we'll talk about a bit as we go on today, I think a lot of that was because I was scared of the softer side. I think I saw it as a little bit of a like, well, that means then I can't have my career. What does that mean for me? I'm not going to be the boss mum. I'm not going to be the career person I thought I might be. So yeah, I think I was a little bit afraid of that softness that was coming in.
Yeah, it's so interesting actually. Like a lot of women expressed to me that they didn't actually want to be a mother, or they didn't have that as a dream or an aspiration, or didn't kind of grow up not being able to wait for that time. So, and it's often about, I think, the fear of what they're going to lose. Yeah. Not necessarily what they're going to gain, but what am I going to lose and what does that mean for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us about your early mothering. Was it what you expected? What showed up for you?
You know what? I don't really know what I expected because I didn't really, looking back, prepare for actually having a child. I prepared for birth and I prepared for having nappies and a nursery and all of that. But beyond that, I don't really think I gave it that much thought. And looking back, in fact, when I look back, it's just like a daze. It's like I don't even really know the timeline that things happened in, because it was like I wasn't really there. Like I always remember the midwife in the early days coming around just as a general check-in. And I remember running downstairs feeling so relieved that she was here to take my baby away. Like it was like this weird dream that I'd gone into that wasn't really real. And I was just like, any moment I'm going to wake up and this is just going to go, this is going to go away, because it was so intense. Like my daughter had to be induced about 4 weeks early because she'd stopped growing. So it was a bit of a shock to the system. I wasn't mentally really prepared for it. And then she was so tiny. We were thankful that she didn't have to go into NICU and get extra support, but so tiny. I had to feed her around the clock. Like, it was absolutely constant. And she cried non-stop. And I was like looking at the photos, like I have a smile on my face during that time in the photos, but I was vacant. You know, I'd lost so much weight. I just wasn't there. And I'll never forget one time that I'd sent my husband out to go meet some friends from a potential parent group, because I was like, we have to have friends. We have to have people who are going through this at the same time as us. So I'd sent him out. And then I called him about an hour and a half later and said, you've got to come home, because I was just with my daughter and she was screaming and I was feeding, and I was hit by such a physical urge to do something, like throw her off me. I think it was such an intense body response, like a visceral response that was just like, get this, I know it sounds awful, but get this thing off me. And it really scared me. So I called him and I was like, you have to come home. Like, I cannot be left alone. You need to come and take over. You need to stay with me. And that was just in like the first few weeks. And it kind of just kept going like that. I was getting a real anger building up inside me that I was containing. Like, I was containing it, which I think was part of the problem. Like, I wasn't acknowledging it. I was very much in my head going, this isn't right. What is wrong with me? I'm not cut out to be a mum. And then thinking about like, well, what I said earlier, like, maybe I didn't want to be a mum really. Maybe this was why I had the miscarriages. Maybe this was, you know, I shouldn't have interfered. This wasn't meant to be. All of those thoughts going through my head, whilst containing this like real physical rage. But I also, looking back, I see the anxiety that I had as well. Like, I had one of those apps where you track feeding and sleep, which breast she'd fed off, like how many times I changed her nappy, like all of those things. But I was really particular over it. It wasn't just a glancing thing of like, oh, that's interesting. It was more intense than that. And I was tracking it. I wanted everything to be right. I wanted the house to be neat, to be tidy. Like, it was just seeping into everything. I think I was just trying to get control. I was like, right now I am out of control and I feel this anger inside me, and that is scary as hell. And I was just trying to claw it back any way I could. So it was kind of an intense start, but I didn't reach out for help, because, you know, I'd always been very independent, very self-reliant. I certainly hadn't done any form of therapy before. I was like, I've just got to push through. It will be better when she sleeps through the night. It will be better when I go back to work, you know, all of those thoughts that were going on. And so I just kept going. And then I was struggling with sleep deprivation, because it was just insane the amount of times she was waking up in the night. And this was going, I mean, I say like, it's such a daze, I don't know the time scale, but at some point between 0 and 1, I went to stay with my mum, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I need sleep. I need help. And I remember her going, right, well, this is what we do. We put her in the cot, we shut the door, and we walk away, and eventually she will go to sleep. And I look back on that and I can feel tears at the back of my mind, because it's such a horrible memory for me, because it felt wrong, but it was like I didn't rationally know that it was wrong, because it was all I knew. Like, nobody had told me how to get a baby to go to sleep, what I should or shouldn't do. I didn't know about co-sleeping. In fact, I think I'd been scared away from co-sleeping from, various professionals I've been in touch with, the midwives and people that I happened to have come into contact with. And it felt incredibly wrong, but I did it because I was desperate and I didn't know any different. And looking back on all of that now, I'm just like, oh my God, like, you should have had more support. Like, now I look back at that with such compassion, but it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I felt so much guilt, so much shame for how I behaved, and the impact and the worry about what that was like, what that might mean for my daughter. So all of this was kind of going on over the first year. And then eventually I returned to work, but I didn't return to my old work. We'd moved house to be closer to my parents. So I had a new job, and I was teaching at the time, and I was head of department, and then they added this department under me and this department under me, and it was growing. And I just, I was a ball of anxiety. I was working around the clock. I was trying to see my daughter when I went home, but I was also like trying to prepare everything that I needed to prepare for work. And eventually my body just stopped. It was like, it just became a physical thing. Like, I've got nothing left. I'd gone from kind of like waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning in floods of tears and yelling at my husband when he tried to comfort me or ask me what was wrong, to just being completely flat. So it was almost like the physical side had to take over. And that is when I got support. That was like, well, okay, now I physically cannot do my work. I physically cannot be productive and functional. So now I have to go to the doctors. And they diagnosed me with depression and anxiety. No mention of rage in that, which had just been kind of simmering along, and like such containment. And yes, I was shouting and I was huffing and puffing and slamming doors and stuff like that. There was no mention of that within all of it. It was like, kind of like, oh, you've got depression, anxiety. Here you go. Try this. Try these antidepressants, which did actually help me, because at the time I'd got to the point where I was driving along thinking maybe it would be easier if I just ran my car off the road. I got to such a point that I was just like, this is insane. And again, looking back, I'm like, my thought was to do that rather than to reach out and say, I need help, which I don't know. I just feel must have just been in such despair, I think, and not knowing where to go from there.
Yeah, thank you for being so honest and vulnerable in that experience. And it's I think it will resonate with so many mothers, because sadly it's actually not an uncommon story, is it? Yeah. And I'm not quite sure why we think going into mothering we don't need support, but I can't explain it. It's once we're in it, how would you describe it? It's almost like we kind of get very stuck or paralyzed almost in that experience, and we just don't know how to get out of it. And then for some reason we just keep adding things to our load until we get to the point where our nervous system is so overwhelmed it has nowhere else to go but get angry, or for it to come out in physical ways. And it's sad too that you, as you know, you're not alone, that so many mothers will not seek help until they have that physical manifestation of their illness. And that also the doctor had to wrap it up neat and tidy and with a bow, and just pull out the script rather than addressing the underlying reasons for your anger.
Yeah, and that is something that ironically makes me really angry nowadays. Like, but it's part of my that is part of my drive now. It's almost like the anger that I experienced then and the anger I have for the kind of support I didn't get and the people that didn't see what was going on around me, the professionals that came in and out that could have seen something or could have shared some information that would have been helped. That is like, it's like an anger in my belly now. It's a fire in my belly, and I want to change things for other people, like hence coming and talking to you and sharing my experience, because it, like you say, it is so common, but we don't realize that. We think we're the only ones at the time, and it is so lonely. It is really lonely.
Very lonely, and we direct that anger very much inwards, and
Yeah.
somehow reason that it must be our fault and that we're just not cut out for this. Like you said, I'm sure it reinforced what you had thought before having children, that it just kind of reaffirmed that this was not for you. You've done the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You've made a mistake. You shouldn't have been a mother.
Yeah.
Instead of directing the anger where it rightly should be directed to. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
And not understanding that anger as a survival mechanism, that anger, like you said, is part of our fight or flight system and our body's stress response. It's more just like it was this bad thing. Like, anger is this bad emotion, whereas actually now I know it's not. It was trying to tell me something, but you don't see it at the time.
No, yeah, because we're often, told the message that anger is not something you would see in a mother, especially if it's going to be directed towards her children. And so that's something that we hide because of the shame, instead of seeing it for what it is, and that is that we need help. It's a message. So how did your anger and rage progress? Did it actually, I know you were saying you kept it quite inward, did it actually come, did you have something that was a defining moment where it was an outward expression of your anger?
There were lots of outward expressions of it. I wouldn't say there was a defining moment. It was mostly things like shout. Like, for example, when my daughter wouldn't sleep, I would put her down more roughly than I wanted to. It wasn't throwing, but it wasn't pleasant. I would roughly put her down. I don't know how to describe that without doing the action kind of with it. Yeah, and I would shout, like I would just be like, "Go to sleep!" Like proper, like a rage shout. And my husband would get the brunt of that as well. Like, I would shout at him anything that he did wrong or any attempt for him to talk to me. And the kindness, like if he showed me any form of kindness or was like, "What's wrong? Like, can I help? Like, what's going on?" I would just respond with rage and yell and scream. And I think that was I think I was so scared. I think I was like, if you're going to be nice to me, and if someone, I am just going to go to pieces and I am not going to get back up again. And I was scared. I think where I was at the time in my life, I was just so scared of any vulnerability. And it is that anger as a survival mechanism. It felt safer, even though it also felt horrible. And, how I was reacting with my daughter, the guilt and the shame that I felt after would eat me up. And it was like that. It was just a cycle of me doing too much, not getting support, taking it out on whoever was in front of me at that time, and then sinking into shame.
It's very much a cycle, isn't it? And the more we feel, the more we are angry, the more shame we feel, and then we feel shame that we're in this cycle, and then we just can't seem to get out of it. Is there deeper things that could be at the root of this anger? So, for instance, when a mother is, she's having that normal human emotion of anger, but she is feeling like it's because her child is pushing her buttons, is triggering her. And what is really happening there? Can you tell us, is there more to that in many cases?
Yeah, I think a lot of cases. I never say every case because we're all unique, we've all got our own experiences. But thinking about myself, thinking about the majority of mums I support as a therapist, there is something deeper going on a lot of the time. And a lot of that comes down to our own experiences of early childhood. And it doesn't have to be our own parents and how they responded. It could be other things. It could be things that went on in the school system. It could be, grandparents, wider family. But a lot of it comes down to how we were treated as children ourselves. For example, like crying was such a massive trigger for me, when seemingly there was nothing wrong. Like she'd been fed, she'd been changed, she was warm, she was held, and I was like, what do you want from me? And for me, I think that was like a part inside me, like my little girl inside me from when I was a child, who was just screaming, going like, I wasn't allowed to shout up like this. I wasn't allowed to voice my wants, and have it met with that level of comfort that she needed. And so it was I think a lot of the time anger is it's the body remembering. Yes, it's our fight or flight, it's our body's stress response, and it can be what is going on in the environment. But sometimes it's just that the body remembers what didn't feel safe when we were little. And I don't think that has to be, I think sometimes we associate that with abuse, and that we have to have experienced a form of abuse, but it can be so subtle. Like, the number one thing a child looks for is connection. Like, that is their number one driver. And so if we struggled to get that when we were little, or we had that, I don't know, maybe some silent treatment, we were put in time out, or, that I'm so disappointed in you, that kind of rejection for a certain behavior, for a child, that feels so incredibly unsafe. And I think for a lot of mums, their body remembers that when their child is behaving in a way that they weren't allowed to.
Yes, yeah. Do you think they're always aware of it at the time?
No, I don't think so. I think, and I think that's from my experience as well, that kind of those thoughts of like, what is wrong with me? There's something wrong. I shouldn't be a mum. We internalize it. And I think a lot of the time that has been what we've been taught to do. Like, when we're little, if we've been behaving in a way and that has received a sharp smack, or, that timeout or something like that, it's like we take that as internalized, as like there's something wrong with us as the child. Because if there's something wrong elsewhere going on, that's not safe either. That's more unsafe. If there's something wrong with our parent, or there's something wrong with the family system or those supporting us, that cannot be considered in a child's mind. So we do, I think we're kind of taught to internalize it like that.
I think a lot of us come from, generations of family where there's just a repetitive cycle of this sort of thing, and it's actually progressing and getting, and the way our parents have raised us is probably so much gentler than the way they were raised, and so for them they feel like they're being very soft, and they're being very kind and very present and caring, and then we too are also trying to improve on the way our parents have parented us. And I think that is the hard part, is that we are forever worrying, we're forever feeling, in that state of, are we doing something that's going to permanently impair our child or hurt our child emotionally or psychologically? Is it that simple, Claire, or really are our children a lot more complex than that?
I mean, I think children generally are complex creatures. I think we're all very complex. And I think there is, children, I do believe, are born with personality and their own traits. And I don't think they are totally shaped by by their experiences. I think there's give and take with that. I think it's a little bit of both. But I think we are also, like what you were saying then really resonated with me about the constant worry about things. And I think maybe nowadays we have so much information thrown at us compared to previous generations. And whilst that works both ways, like the previous generations maybe didn't have access to a lot of things that would have helped them in those moments and helped them in their parenting and understanding children and things like that. But on the flip side now, we are bombarded with noise about how to do things and how to get it right. And I think that's a real big issue. You know, there's all sorts of different types of parenting. Somebody puts a post on Instagram about gentle parenting and there will be a whole range of comments that come under going, that's not the right way, this is the right way. Like, you know, the noise is insane. And so I think that adds to our worry.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And working with parents, you know, more in that early stage too, it kind of what you said before about the apps, you know, the different developmental milestone apps and the apps that you can record everything, basically everything.
Yeah.
It's and I had these parents showing me, see, what do you think about this? Is that enough sleep? Is that enough of this? Is that enough formula? Is that enough nappies? Is that, you know, shouldn't I have gotten a bit more of a gap there, or shouldn't I have? And it kind of makes me cringe. We didn't have that. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of unhealthy parts of having too much information. And we can often go the other way of over-analysing everything. And I do think that our children have some scope for their own learning and their own growth. And their own nervous system regulation as well, that, you know, we've just got to learn as parents because they're all different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I think of my two children, my eldest is such a deep feeler. She's gorgeously sensitive, and that's both amazing and brings its own struggles with. My youngest is completely different. Like, she's like a little bull in a china shop, doesn't really care whatever anybody else is doing. And that's awesome in its own ways as well. But it presents its different challenges with parenting and how I can't treat them both in the same way. I can't do the same thing and get the same outcome. And I think that's what a lot of the, you know, the apps and the advice that we see on social media very much suggests, like, if you just do this, this will happen. And then when it doesn't happen, we're like, I am doing wrong. I need to look for something else. And then we go on this scavenge hunt for the thing that will give us the answer, when actually we just need to be with that child and see them for their uniqueness that they are, and have compassion for ourselves in how hard that can be.
Yeah, exactly. We all go in with the right intentions, and of course we go in with wanting what's best for our child, but we're all learning as well.
Yeah.
And so what, as you said, like one's parenting style might work for one and not the other. And I think just giving yourself room for a bit of flexibility in that, and compassion, of course, because we're all learning each other's ways and styles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we forget that, you know, when we have a baby, we don't just get a baby, we become a mum. Like, and that is such a massive shift. It is huge. It's like, you know, like the word matrescence to describe that change from being someone who is totally independent and just doing your own thing to being this mother who is nurturing a vulnerable young child, and the hormones and, you know, the changes to relationships, friendships, and everything that comes with that. It's massive.
Yeah, absolutely. give ourselves some slack, because I think, getting back to, you know, the way that we originally were talking at the beginning was, you know, maybe we're a person that just, we were very predictable. We felt very safe. We felt very much we had a routine. And so we had a level of control. And as you said, the problem is that when we have a baby, a lot of those things go out the window. Yeah. And so, of course, we're going to feel unsafe, and things are going to be unpredictable, and therefore we're going to not feel ourselves. It's not going to feel familiar. I think the normal reaction is often frustration and anger. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you give us any examples in, you know, in your practice of the ways mums have felt anger, but actually it was probably stemming from that little hurt girl inside of them in a mum's body?
Yeah. So many different ways. And I think without talking about any specific client, like just the general things that come up, it's like when, for example, something that has come up quite a lot is having a toddler and they're creating mess, or they spill something and they seemingly just do not care about that thing, because why would they? They're a toddler. It means nothing to them. But to mum, inside that, the body response to that is huge, because often we've been taught that it's not okay to make mistakes or make a mess, and that's part of the sort of the messages that we've got. And so the response is immediate. Shouting, "What are you doing?" Grabbing them out of the high chair and going straight into cleaning up mode, and ignoring the child that is then becoming dysregulated because of everything that is going on. And I think it becomes like that kind of example. Everything becomes quite frantic in mum's mind. It is, I must tidy this mess up quickly. That is like laser focused on that. And then when that stops, that's when they realise that maybe they've been rougher than they intended to be, that they've just shouted at their child over a spilled drink. And it's things like that that often make mums reach out for help, when they have those moments of like, look what I've just done. Like, should I be like this over a spilled drink? When that questioning starts to come in. But then also it's things like, as children get older, and, you know, a toddler onwards, and the word no becomes used like forcefully, and they know what they want and what they don't want to do, and they just refuse. And stories that I often hear are about trying to leave the house, with a child refusing to put the shoes on, won't get ready, are faffing about with toys. You know, they're wanting to carry all the toys out to the car, and mum is just trying to get them to drop off at nursery and get to work. And it's that, like, I'm going to be late, and the body is already in rush mode because there's a deadline. I have to be there. And not being there at a particular time feels unsafe, because maybe the script that we've received growing up is like, you need to respect other people, respect their time, be there on time, probably early. A lot of the time I hear mums are like, oh, well, I'm 15 minutes early for everything, but leaving the house is so stressful. And that is it creates such a body response that they are rushing around trying to get everything done before then the explosion comes. And it's like, why can't you just put your shoes on? And it's grabbing a foot and shoving it into the shoe. And then maybe once they're in the car, sitting and crying, because then it's like the action is complete and the body's done what it needs to get the job done, and it then disintegrates into tears, because it feels so overwhelming, and because they realise they've shouted and they didn't want to, and that now they are maybe going to be late. And there's so much emotion that comes with all of that. Like, there are so many little instances of of those kind of things during the day, and we don't realise a lot of the time that we are rushing when our body kind of goes from like being, and it might never really be content, I suppose. Like some of us, if we're in that state, we might never really feel rested and content in that non-fight or flight state. And we don't really realize how gradual that creeps in to being rushing around. And that is our fight or flight response kicking in. Like as soon as we start to rush, as soon as we're like starting to be a bit headless and gather everything up, that's the point at which we need to pause and go, right, I'm rushing. What does this mean? How big a deal is this? Like, is this something that is life or death scenario? Because that is what the brain is telling us is going on. It's saying you're being chased by a bear. Like, you've got to have all this adrenaline pumping through your body to get out of the house as quickly as possible. But as mums, we often don't have time to actually pause and realize that is what is going on.
Yes, I can so relate to that, and I can kind of recall myself over the years being the same. It's just this whole, it's almost like a impulsive, desperate rushing, isn't it? And you gather, and the more you try to find something, the less you can find it, like your keys or your wallet or your, that piece of paper that you need to take to the doctor, or, a document or whatever. And I really don't think we realise that we're in flight or fight. It's only been in recent years, as I have older children now, that I've started to realise that's what that was. Yeah. So it is a very kind of, it's a difficult thing that is hard to recognise at the time. So thank you for those kind words as well, and providing insight to that. Yeah. And also, that question of, is it a life or death matter? What will happen if we don't get there? Yeah. Or, if we get there 10 minutes later, which I don't know, may make us start to maybe reason that out a little bit more. Yeah. But it's tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
It really is. And, like thinking about the stories that I hear and how this anger kind of displays and how it comes out, I often find those kind of examples are like really, really common. And they're also the kind of examples of how anger comes out that mums might start with when we first start therapy. Like, this is the kind of example, this is the kind of thing that is happening. And then later, something that has been really hard to say comes out. And that might be that they have screamed in their face at a child, like really screamed, not just shouting, like in their face. Or it might be that they've lashed out at their child, that they've smacked them, that there's been something more physical there. And I find mums are really scared to tell me things like that. Because often they are so worried about what will happen. They love their children so much. And the fear in the back of their mind is that I'm going to go, right, we need to take your baby off you. We need to go through the process with social services. We need to, and I think that is such an insane fear. Like, by insane, I mean big. It is such a big fear that mums have. But I think having that fear as well shows me how much they love their baby. Like, they don't want to be separated. And I always say, like, the very fact you are reaching out, the very fact we are having this conversation shows me that doesn't need to happen. Like, that you care, you want different, you want change, you don't want to feel like that again. And the shame that hits so hard and everything to do with that shows how much love you have for that child. And it's so hard for mums to see that in the moment.
Yeah, we're very hard on ourselves, aren't we? Much harder on ourselves than we are on other mothers.
Yeah.
Instead of putting ourselves in that category as we are
Mm-hmm.
another mother deserving of kindness and compassion and some understanding. But
Yeah.
mothers do need to feel safe to give away that information.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of mothers that even I come across don't feel safe to
Yeah.
even tick the box on a Edinburgh survey or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because there is that very, very real fear. And a lot of what you're saying is I guess, also some of the things that we've been taught from our own mothers or from women that we've seen around us is that good girl conditioning as well. We have to be quiet. We have to keep the peace. We've got to be protective of our family. We've got to hide what's really going on. And so it really would go against the grain, wouldn't it? Also to be expressive about things that were less pleasant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's that whole idea that comes with motherhood, that you're meant to be nurturing, calm and kind all the time with that good girl mentality. We just kind of get raised from being that good girl into women, into mothers, and it is just so carried through. So then, like, when I was trying to contain my rage, it was like, because this isn't what a woman or what a mum experiences, and we contain until it explodes out. And yeah, absolutely, saying that motherhood isn't what we expected, when you see messages all the time that are given on social media that, well, you wanted this, we can want this, we can want a baby. And by the time I had my first baby, I'd gone through miscarriages and fertility treatment, and I wanted that baby so much, but I can also find it really hard, and I can also really struggle. Like, two things can be true.
Absolutely. Yeah, motherhood is very ambivalent, isn't it? We can hold two things that seem quite opposing, and they're both very normal. Yeah. How do you feel when a mother comes in and says, I hate the mother that I've become?
So much. I feel so sad for how she feels about herself, but I also feel so much hope with the fact that she has said that out loud, and she is here with me. And anyone, whoever they say it to, whether it's a friend, a doula, or a therapist, there's so much hope in saying that out loud, and there's so much strength in saying that out loud as well. So although, it hits me in the heart, because that's how they feel about themselves, but it's also the start of something. It's the start of change. Yeah.
So I do hear a lot of mothers saying, look, I am finding this stage really difficult, and it's something I've just got to get through. I'll be better. I will feel more in control. I will feel calmer. I will feel, like we've got routine, and, I've got a handle on things when the children reach certain milestones or ages, like when they start school, or, all those sorts of things. What would you say to that?
I would say I get it. And I was very much there when she sleeps through, when she does this, and it will be easier. But in reality, children grow and they change. And some things do get easier. Like, for example, sleep deprivation may become less. It often does. However, there'll be other challenges. There'll be other things that come up. There'll be stronger emotions. There will be, for example, school drop-offs that don't go well, and the child does not want to go. We've had a lot of that this year with my youngest, and it is intense holding space for those emotions, and making them feel comforted, while you are also trying to get them out the door and get to work, and everything else on top of it. There are so many little stressful moments like that. And if I think about my 9-year-old, like, she is fierce. She's in that real stage now where she wants to be independent, but she also wants me there all the time. And it can be frustrating, it can be confusing. There's that "I hate you" has come out. If I hadn't gone through my own growth and looked inward, a lot of that would be hitting me really hard. And I don't think I would be reacting now like I am. I think I would be reacting out of fight or flight and anger and shouting back, and escalating things, rather than being able to give them the regulation that they are seeking, and that connection that they are seeking in things. And even, like, I know I said sleep deprivation gets better, like, and I do think it does a lot of the time. But for example, last night I was sleeping with my 9-year-old. She wanted me there. She couldn't sleep. She was awake at 4 a.m. even though I was there. Like, that it still comes in. I think being able to recognize what is going on, separate it from those thoughts of like, what am I doing wrong, and that I'm not good enough because they're behaving like this. I think all of that is so important to explore. And I'm sure we're not in the teen years yet, but I am both excited and nervous about that and what that's going to bring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we've talked a little bit outside of the podcast about perimenopause, which you and I are both, I think, experiencing some of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's another time that we truly underestimate the transition and change in our bodies and in our minds and in our whole identity. I find it quite similar to postpartum in a lot of ways. How can that anger kind of, I know I've experienced it, I know a lot of women are telling me they're experiencing this anger. Why does it resurface, and how can we kind of manage that?
Yeah, I think it's that change that we're going through. I think it puts us into a really vulnerable state, like adolescence does, like postpartum does. It's the same thing again. And everything feels a bit discombobulated. Like, we might be experiencing more anxiety. We might be seeing things that are going on in the world that before didn't bother us, but actually now that seems really wrong or unjust.
Yes.
I think there's a lot about perimenopause that brings to the fore a lot of that injustice, whether it's like gender inequality and things, and we realize the kind of things that we've been putting up with, and how much of the load we've been carrying. And it's another state where we are kind of, if we haven't already done it, especially in postpartum, it's that kind of state where everything comes to a head. Everything feels too much because we've got the hormone changes. We might be feeling more anxiety. We might be struggling with our mood very much up and down. I know about 9 months ago, anxiety hit me really hard from nowhere. And I was like, what is going on? And then I was worried that I was going back into sort of depression and anxiety from postpartum, but I couldn't see anything in my environment. I was like, what is this? And I realized it's perimenopause. It's the hormonal changes, things that were bothering me that didn't bother me before. But if I hadn't realized that, if I hadn't known that would have, anxiety and anger sit together in the fight or flight stress response. And that anger I have no doubt, would have been unleashed again. And with that sort of the injustice that we see around us at this kind of age, and the support that we realize we're maybe not getting, anger is a response to injustice as well.
Yeah, I think our tolerance goes down too, doesn't it? A tolerance for what we can handle, and the injustices, we're like, that's it, we've had enough, we can no longer be silent.
Yeah. And I think it's a real point at which we need to lean into going slower. And yet society doesn't go slow, does it? You know, there's always a hustle culture. There's things to be done. You have to be productive. And it's so against what our bodies need in perimenopause. And so there's always going to be that tension between what we feel we should be doing and what actually our bodies are currently capable of. And what they currently need is to be cared for and slowed down and nurtured. And that can create a lot of anger. and a lot of stress. And if you're, you know, in the workplace and there's pressures on you to keep performing, and yet you feel like you're falling apart inside, it's that same thing, isn't it, as in postpartum, of what is wrong with me? When
Yes.
actually it's a cycle, it's a period of change that we're going through, and we need more than society can currently give us for support in that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
It feels important to acknowledge that often, if we're having children later in life, that we can kind of seamlessly transition from postpartum into perimenopause. And one kind of blends into the other. I've kind of I feel like I only just kind of came out of, my youngest is 5. I only just came out of that really before I started questioning whether I was in perimenopause. And being aware of that, like there are those body things going on that aren't going to be fixed by a child sleeping through the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another layer often is that we're at that stage where we might be caring for our parents on top of raising young children. So what are you enjoying at the moment about this season of mothering?
Oh, you know what? The thing I enjoy most is the curiosity my children have. Like, I absolutely soak it up. My 5-year-old has like the most amazing questions about life, the universe, like just massive. And she just has these big eyes that looks at you, and so like as though like I am the oracle of information. But then she'll shout at me to look it up with Google or something if I don't know the answer. But also like the love, like the utter unconditional love that I think actually is what I was scared of right at the beginning of my motherhood journey, that was too soft. But it is like my 9-year-old needing me in her room last night. Great. I love that. I'm here for that. Yes, it can be hard, and absolutely sleep deprivation does not go down well with me. But I also love that connection, that they turn to me, that they put their trust in me. Seeing that, and my 9-year-old becoming more independent and going to the cinema with me, and you know, it's lovely.
Yeah. I know. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And it's a nice message to get out there to mothers, that even if they are in a difficult season, that things are always changing and shifting. So around the corner, there'll be something that you'll really love.
Absolutely. And I definitely, for me, the baby state is not my state. Like that is not my phase that I enjoy. When we get to sort of 4, 5, 6, great. 9 and what comes from there, that's perhaps more of a challenge. But I'll lean into the fun bits that we can get from it as well.
I mean, there are great parts of the teenage years too. It is a lot of fun as well, and it's so beautiful to watch them become their own person as well during that time.
Absolutely.
So if you could give a gift to the mothers of the world, what would it be? I know we'd want to give so many things, but what comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there is so much. If I had a magic wand, it would be self-compassion. Like, hands down, number one thing I would want to gift every single mum in the world, because the amount they are carrying, that often they don't realize they are carrying, is enormous. And they're still doing an amazing job. Even when anger strikes, even when anxiety strikes, there's still so much they are doing really well. Like, that self-compassion would be hands down the number one thing. But also support. Like, I think about my children as they grow up. If they decide to have children, they are going to have the best support I can get them with that. They are going to have a doula. They're going to have a private midwife. I will pay for their therapy should they wish to go. You know, they are going to have that support and that village as best I can give it. And I think we should all have that. If I could gift just support, intergenerational support that comes without criticism, I would gift it.
And that's how we break cycles, isn't it, too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the mums that I speak with are doing that, and I think a lot of the mums that aren't even reaching out for help are doing that. They are breaking cycles, and they want to break those cycles. It's just that they're carrying it alone. They're carrying it on their own.
Yeah, we do need that village of support around us.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Claire, for your time today. I know it's early in the morning for you and it's later in the night for me.
Yeah, it's been so lovely to chat with you through all of this, and it's such an important topic to get out so people know that they're not on their own. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It just felt very conversational between two mums, and that's what I love. Yeah, so thank you for supporting mothers in their growth and in all the complex feelings that come up, especially that one of anger. And I'd just like to really just say again, anger is a normal human emotion that is often just a physiological response to an overwhelmed nervous system. And it's a call for change, and it's a call for, maybe setting boundaries or saying no or whatever, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Yeah. So thank you. I hope we can have more chats in the future. I trust that you enjoyed this episode. Postpartum is Forever is a podcast that is focused on honouring the mother. My wish for you is that you feel more aware, less alone, more empowered, and a whole lot kinder to yourself in your mothering. Your support means the world to me, and so I would be grateful if you could follow me on my Instagram page, Postpartum is Forever Podcast, and share this podcast on your socials. Rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening from, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Big love.